Let's dive right in. Welcome, everybody. Happy almost New Year. We are, for the second week in a row, going to do something a little bit different. There's plenty in the news these days. President Trump just met with Volodymyr Zelensky, held a phone call with Vladimir Putin. There are profiles of Marjorie Taylor Greene running in the New York Times, lots of to-do about next year's elections. And we're not going to talk about any of it. We are taking an aggressive news break. We don't want to talk about anything in the news for this last podcast, Dispatch podcast of 2025. Instead, we're going to talk about things that we want to talk about related to this past year, things that we enjoyed, some pop culture stuff, some Jonah stuff. And I've totally lost my place on my little sheet for questions.
Like, is Jonah one of the topics?
Jonah's a topic.
Oh, Jonah!
I was
my
not
favorite
warned.
Jonah of 2025.
We're
most
staging-
annoying.
We're
most
staging an
annoying
intervention, Jonah. This is the.
I sent it just to the other panelists and not you. Most annoying Jonah moment of the year. Maybe that's a good place to start.
No.
No, it's not. We won't do that. We won't subject you to that.
Well, not live.
Yeah. And
Not on
Not
the
live
air.
and not
Not
in
on
front
the
of
air.
Jonah.
plus, you guys trying to sort of replicate my relationship with my wife is weird.
Actually, had I thought about it, I could have gone to her for some prompting questions.
Yeah.
Would have been good. Let's start with the best book you read in 2025. And we should be clear with people that we said these could be books published long before 2025, but book that you read in 2025. And Megan, I'll start with you.
Well, there is a backstory to this. As some listeners know, I have another podcast at the Washington Post. This is an interview show. I am not trying to, steal the thunder of the Dispod. But
We love your other podcast. We will gladly put a link in the show notes, and you're welcome to mention it by name and promote it.
yes,
We'll
it's
beep
called
that out.
It's called Reasonably Optimistic, and the idea is that I think people are getting tired of endlessly being told why everything in the world is terrible. So while we do talk about problems in the world, my last interview was with Astrid Tuminis, who is the president of Utah Valley University, where Charlie Kirk was shot, about how to bring her campus back together after a tragedy like that. But so the first interview I did, as we were sitting around thinking about guests, I said to my producers, well, what about Neil Stephenson, who is a science fiction writer? And they said, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to need a lot of lead time because I haven't read his books in many years and he writes very long novels. And they said, okay. And they came back and they said, okay, we booked him in 2 weeks.
That was not the lead time you were looking for.
That was not the lead time I was looking for. So for 2 weeks, I did nothing except work and read Neil Stephenson novels. My husband took over everything in our house. I read, 8,000 pages of Neil Stephenson novels. And one of them was the first Neil Stephenson novel I ever read, which is a book called The Diamond Age. Now, I read this in galleys. My first job out of college was as an editorial assistant at Bantam Doubleday Dell's science fiction division. I lasted 3 months before being fired by an editor who said, I think you're going to be a very good editor someday, but you're a terrible assistant. I mean, totally true. Absolutely justified.
And in its own way, a compliment, maybe.
Yes, well, she was wrong that I would be a good editor, but I did, find my way into the world of letters. And so I then picked this up for the first time since 1994. And it was as amazing as I remembered it 31 years ago. It is, and I think also speaks to the current era in a way, because it's about the question of, first of all, the educational divide between wealthy and poor, but also something that I think parents are really struggling with as we see all sorts of problems in the education system, which is how do you give your kids the challenges that allowed you to screw up, maybe perhaps even getting fired from your first job out of college, but that also made them strong and resilient and able to tackle failure and overcome it. The system now is designed to minimize failure. It selects on people who never fail, right? That's the college admissions system is basically like, for those of a certain age, will remember Nadia Comaneci, the perfect 10, right? That's what you have to do. You have to make no mistakes in order to get into college. For those of us who are prone to making mistakes in our youth, I think we've got, Jonah, I think, had a somewhat similarly checkered high school career. And I think it's not
In
that
fact,
I
if I can interject for 1 second, as a Gen Xer here, when you, with a checkered adolescent career, when you say the perfect 10 and Nadia Comaneci, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. But I'm thinking Bo Derek.
Fine. Okay. Well, ladies and men are different. We've had an important learning today, very special episode of Blossom. But so I think that it's about the plot of the story is about basically a high up lord in a future where society is fractured a bit, but there's this neo-Victorian society that is weird and wonderful. And he looks at his grandkids, he looks at his kids who have become incredibly conventional, and he wants to make them more interesting, to make them capable of having interesting lives, to make them capable of, and so he has an AI, or what Stevenson then calls pseudo-intelligence, make an interactive book that will adapt and grow with the child and provide her with the kind of the danger and the unconventional thinking that he worries that his children are missing. And it gets weirder and more wonderful from there. It is anyway. So this book falls into the hands. One copy. There are 3 copies made, and one of them falls in the hands of a girl living in the slums of Asia. And it is just a deeply fascinating story about what happens to that little girl who has a terribly underprivileged life, and how, I'm not going to spoil anymore, but it was so good. When you read, when you have a book that you loved and someone else has never read it and you're jealous of them,
yes,
because they get to read it for the first time. It turns out you can recreate that experience by waiting 31 years. But also, for listeners who have not read it, I am jealous of you because you're going to read it for the first or the second time.
So I am decidedly not a science fiction guy. I've never got it.
What?
I've done very little reading. I know this comes as a shock. But that sounds absolutely fascinating to me.
I think give it a try. Even if you're not a science fiction person, give it a try.
Yeah. I will jump in. Jonah, have you read Stevenson?
I did. And I agree. It's a great book, and I reread it a couple of years ago. And the right at the beginning, the conversations about AI taking on in earnest, and it does have a certain, I don't know, it has there's the old phrase, you can't ever read the same book twice the same way, because it's just a different experience. And I found it hard. I still think it's a fantastic book. I found it hard for me not to read it as if I was going to write about it, rather than just fall into it. In part because I knew what was going to happen, and in part because I don't read for pleasure as much as I would like these days. Yeah. And so it's hard to get out of writer mode when reading. And so a point I would be returning to when it's my turn. It was
It's
a
your
great book.
turn.
I mean, I should also say I have a wonderful gift, which is that I can forget what happened at the ends of books. So I have reread many Agatha Christie murder mysteries. These were the first adult books I read. My parents had a huge trunk of them. Nero Wolfe's Agatha Christie's and Dorothy Sayers. And these were the first grown-up, and Dick Francis, sorry. These were the first grown-up books I read. And the wonderful thing is that because I forget what happened at the end of them, if I wait like 5 years, I can just reread it. I won't know who the murderer is. I can enjoy the entire thing over again. So
Jonah, jump in.
All right. So as I said, I don't do much to my wife's chagrin, because she has been on a reading tear the last couple of years. Like, I don't know, it seems like 3-4 books a month of just all sorts of different kinds, if not more. And as some listeners know, I haven't signed the papers yet, so I can still back out. But I am planning on writing a book about conservatism. We can discuss that book another day. But it's requiring me to go and spelunking in various aspects of sort of intellectual history and whatnot. And I read this book, The Lost History of, what's the exact title? Yeah, The Lost History of Liberalism by Helena Rosenblatt. And I don't agree with everything in it, but it's a really rich book that basically does something. It's an interesting way of doing it. Instead of doing a history of the idea, she does the history of the word, like literally the word, and how its meaning changes over time. And so she starts with the ancient Greeks, and so like we don't have to get too deep in the eggheady weeds about it, but liberalism, being liberal, I can't remember the Latin, that where we started from, but
Liber, right?
yeah, libertas, they're different versions. But the point is, it originally had to do with character, of being a generous person, of sort of being the patriarch of a clan or a family in ancient Rome or ancient Greece, and that you were a generous person. So, like, when I say give me a liberal pour of scotch, in many ways that is hearkening back to the original understanding, because it's a generous pour, right? Like, you do well by your staff, even your slaves. You do well by your clients, in the sort of old, because people forget that the original form of political organization was sort of clientelism, where you were the local, aristocrat, and you had this sort of reciprocal relationship with people, and it grows over time, having different theological things. We don't need to do the whole history, but one of the things I've taken away from it, which is a helpful realization for me, is that when people like Megan and I often will refer to ourselves as classical liberals, the implication is that there was a classic age of liberalism. And there kind of really wasn't. And the definite, the idea that liberalism and democracy go hand in hand is just not true. One of the things I resent a lot about the book is that a lot of the development of the idea of liberalism happens in France and Germany rather than in, where it belongs in England and Scotland, in America. But it's a sort of a helpful perspective on it. And the idea that laissez-faire always meant, that liberalism always meant laissez-faire is just really kind of not true. It did not mean it either. It just depended on the context and the place and the time and all of that. And so one of the reasons why I find it useful and interesting to think about is that conservatism and liberalism, which we think are these antipodal terms, that's largely because of Franklin Roosevelt, by the way. Boo his. The idea that, in the revolutions of 1848, the liberals wanted, or you can call them the Republicans, because those terms that for periods of time were kind of interchangeable too. They wanted constitutions, or they wanted a broader franchise, or they wanted property rights for the middle class. And with the emergence of what we come to know as the left, the liberals are cast as conservatives, right? The people who want kings, divine right of kings, are reactionaries, and the liberals are kind of the conservatives. And Dan Klein did a great paper, which I wish he addressed, because now you can do these massive database searches of all printed materials. And he found that we really owe the term liberal as libertarians and sort of classical liberals as we use the phrase today, we really owe it not to the Spaniards and the liberals of Cadiz, but to Adam Smith. Because it was Adam Smith's liberal system of economics that gets to be called liberal economics. But again, this golden age where there was like all these classical liberals around and they all agreed on what it was never existed. And it's always been a contested term. And for someone who needs to figure out how to define all of my terms, it was a very useful starting point for more reading and reading and reading. So
we will look forward to it being reflected in the pages of your new book. Mike, best book you read in 2025?
I have it right here, actually. It is the revised and updated edition of And a Bottle of Rum by Wayne Curtis, who was the longtime, may still be the current drinks cocktails columnist at the Wall Street Journal. This book is nearly, it's probably more than 2 decades old at this point. This is a revised version, updated. The subject matter alone is worth the read. It is the story of the New World through 10 cocktails. In fact, that's the subtitle of the book, A History of the New World in 10 Cocktails, focused on the spirit of rum. And it is sort of the ideal for telling a story about a subject over the course of history, because it's not only a story about this particular spirit. If you're not a drinker, or if you really don't know nothing about rum, which I really didn't know much about rum before I read this book, but you appreciate history, this is a book that sort of walks you through these moments. It's not comprehensive in terms of North American and ultimately American history, but you sort of take these little pit stops across moments from the original colonization of the New World by the Europeans, through the sort of later colonial period, through the early days of the United States, and all the way through basically to modern times. And each chapter has a different cocktail that is associated with that time period. And it's one of those things where perhaps, an author takes a subject and really there are moments where he might have to kind of really press things and transmogrify things in order to kind of fit his concept. It's just really a stretch to say that this is also some period that we must talk about, but he feels sort of an obligation. This book is not like that. It really does sell the idea that this spirit of rum has been sort of in our country's history, even at the times when very few people were drinking it. One of my favorite chapters was about the period where rum as a drink, which rum is, again, for anybody who doesn't know, it's a spirit that's created from a sugar byproduct. Most of the time that's molasses, sometimes that's sugarcane juice. But other than that, rum is kind of whatever you want to make of it. And rum really fell out of fashion after being sort of the one of the most popular spirits in the early part of the United States history. Really fell out of fashion starting sort of the mid 19th century, for really the next kind of 60, 70 years. But it was during that time that, rum still had this hold on the culture, and ideas about it sort of had a hold on the culture. We remember, the phrase being used by Republicans in the post-Civil War era to kind of criticize the Democratic Party, which was getting a lot of the immigrant vote from Ireland and other of these sort of second-class countries in Europe that were coming in. The phrase was, "Are you going to vote for Republicans or are you going to vote for the Democrats, which would bring, rum, Romanism, and rebellion?" Even though nobody was drinking rum, this idea that rum was this representative of this just disgusting, low status kind of person. It just there's a story to be told even when people aren't drinking rum. So I love this book for the subject matter alone. But I also love this book. Jonah, you talked about how you can't read a book without thinking about writing about it. I often find myself, particularly with these kind of popular histories, thinking about how the author put this together and how that could reflect my own writing and how to put things together as well. So I also read this book thinking about that. I was reading this in the run up to writing a piece for the Dispatch about tiki cocktails and tiki culture. And so I got a lot of just the stylistic inspiration for that piece by reading this book. There's lots of, sort of fun anecdotes. He tells a story about the reenactment of Paul Revere's ride, during, the very opening hours of the Revolutionary War, in which there's a particular house in a part of Massachusetts that the ride stops at, that the Paul Revere reenactor every year would stop at. That was a place where traditionally every year that they've reenacted this, the Paul Revere reenactor walks in, takes a shot of rum, which is what Paul Revere did at the moment, and then goes on his way. And the sort of sadness that this, the man who was running the house where this happened, that increasingly the Paul Revere reenactors don't take a shot of rum. They drink some water and they move on. And the sort of loss of that little bit of tradition. It's just great. It's terrific. It tells a story about not only the time period, but also kind of where we are. I highly recommend it.
Did you try any of the rum recipes in the book?
Yes, absolutely. Some
But
of
you
them are
spit it out, right? Like a good sommelier. You just wanted to...
Totally, absolutely. It's funny because some of them are truly, I'll just read you one of the ones that I can't believe anybody actually drank this, but they did. This is called a flip. Mix 1 cup of beer, 2 tablespoons of molasses, and 1 ounce of Jamaican-style rum into a mug or tankard. Heat loggerhead to red hot in an open fire. That's a fireplace poker, basically. Then thrust it into the drink and stir. Keep loggerhead immersed until foaming and sputtering ceases. Drink hot. I did not try that one.
Yeah, we've made flips. They're delicious. Beer flips are wonderful. We don't have a fireplace, so we did not use a hot poker, but you can just also heat it on the stove. Same effect.
True.
And they are absolutely delicious, and I recommend them to readers. Listeners.
That's crazy. That does not sound absolutely delicious.
No, I know.
to me.
It's funny. It
But
doesn't, but it's like kind of a dessert beverage almost.
Yes.
Like and they're really tasty. I don't like beer. So the fact that I am willing to drink this tells you something.
Yeah. Well, I will be brief with my best book of 2025, in part because
not to traffic in
Please.
gross ethnic stereotypes, but how many McArdles don't like beer? I mean, is it
One.
does it get out of single digits?
My sister also doesn't like it, so that would be 2.
Okay. All right.
I'm not familiar with any others, but if there are any McArdles out there, listen, if you're hearing this and you don't like beer, reach out.
That's Roundtable at thedispatch.com. Jonah, you mentioned that you don't do as much pleasure reading as you used to, and one reason I'll keep mine short is because I'm in the same boat, and it's really actually sort of pathetic how little pleasure reading I do these days, which is to say virtually none. And I was the kid, it sounds like I was like you, Megan. I was with a book from the time I could read until, the time I graduated from college. I just read everything all the time. And I don't anymore. And mostly it's because when it comes time to go to bed at night, if I try to read a book, I'll be asleep in, 2 minutes, even if it's a great book. So I don't read
Isn't
much
that
for pleasure.
good?
It is, but
Those
then
of
it's
us who have
frustrating.
insomnia are like,
Yeah, you'd like that. Yeah, I mean, it just takes too long to get through a good book, and I haven't carved out time to read. So I don't have many. I mean, I was looking back at the books that I've read this year, and they fall into one of two categories. Most of them are books I've read for work. And then there were a couple of, and I don't even know what you'd call them. I guess we would put them in the self-help category, which again, not a big genre for me.
But the need
books-
is so strong.
the need is strong. Fair. If you have any recommendations, Jonah, please send them my way. No, one book that I had recommended, I think it was a combination of my brother and a friend of mine who's also a pastor. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And it's by a young sort of rising star preacher in the evangelical world who's like racing through life, growing his churches, doing all these things, and realizes sort of, hey, it might be better for me to take a step back to do the kind of work that I actually want to do. And it's a terrific book. I mean, it tells a story, but the lessons are kind of obvious. And sort of, I guess, in the ultimate tribute to the book, I started it in, I think, June, and I'm not yet done. So I am eliminating hurry. I'll finish it whenever I damn well want to finish it. And it won't be anytime soon, in all likelihood. Let's jump to either films or series that you watched in 2025 that were your favorites or that you would recommend. And Megan, I'll start with you again.
So for series, I have a really oldie but a goodie, which is that I had never watched the original Perry Mason from Raymond Burr. So I went back and they were on Amazon, and then you had to get part of them through one of the services that has commercials, and it was like the drug dealer, right? The first two seasons are ad free, and then you got to go to the ad supported. But it was surprisingly good. And then I watched the follow-up series he did called Ironside, which almost no one has ever heard of. Except for Mike and Jonah, who are nodding enthusiastically.
Well, can I just say very quickly, we were discussing with my parents last night the TV schedule in like 1972 or something along those lines. Several years when my mom was younger, and I mentioned Ironside, and she said, "Yes, I know that show." So there you go.
Yeah, so I really surprisingly enjoyed it. It's definitely a period piece, but Raymond Burr, it's sort of like Hugh Laurie in House. That show would not have been good without Hugh Laurie.
Mm-hmm.
It would have lasted a few seasons and gone off the air. But Hugh Laurie is just magnificent, and so you don't care about the lackluster acting by other people and or silly plots. There's a bit of that in Ironside, and it's also, for me, it's such a delightful period piece because I've been getting really into. I've been rereading Vince Canato's The Ungovernable City. I have been going back and thinking about urban disorder and why it happened and why all these social changes in the late 60s, early 70s. I've also reread another candidate for an oldie but goodie book reread is David Frum's How We Got Here, the 70s and the Making of Modern American Life. And so it's really interesting to watch how people doing television in the late 60s and early 70s that is prestige, the prestige TV of its day, right? They have one of the most successful actors from a prior series who is doing a kind of the same but different. Now it's in color. Now it's got, it's got mod, hip young people, a female police lieutenant, it's about a paralyzed detective, a black personal aide who I intuit is eventually going to become a cop. And so, which very forward for the late 60s. And it's just really fascinating, but also surprisingly well done. It's not perhaps as good as a modern prestige TV drama, but really good. Available for free right now on the Roku channel. But okay, so here is the tragic part. I'm in the middle of watching this, and then it goes off the streaming service I'm watching it on. And so now I have to go find it on the Roku channel. And since I do not have a Roku, I am in the middle of trying to restore. But I've really been enjoying it so far. If you're looking for something more modern, I've been enjoying Landman. I've been enjoying Pluribus, which just finished up on Apple TV. I really love Landman. I can't justify it. It's a soap opera, but it's so well done. If you like Taylor Sheridan, you will like this. Anyway, so that's me on TV series.
Had you watched Perry Mason before,
Never,
or were you?
Never. I had never seen an episode of it. And I got interested, and then I watched the entire series all the way through. And then when I was done, I was like, wait, that's it? And then I was like, what else did he do? And I found this other series and started watching it. And in some ways, I think I actually enjoy it more than Perry Mason. It's really surprisingly well done for its era.
Jonah?
All right, so I have so many thoughts on all that. I don't know where to begin, but I'll get to mine in just a second. So Vin Cannato, who wrote the Lindsay book that Megan referred to, one of my oldest friends. And
what's the Lindsay book? Give people a brief description of the book.
Is it the Ungovernable City?
It's called The Ungovernable City. There are a couple of books in urbanism that I've read more than once because I find them so rich. One of them is Alan Ehrenholt's The Lost City, which is about Chicago in the 50s. He also wrote a great book called The Great Inversion, which is about why America, kind of uniquely among places, had for a period rich people living outside the city and poor people living downtown, which is not the normal pattern. But The Ungovernable City is about John Lindsay, who was the great progressive Republican mayor of New York, and who, just presided over total chaos and its descent into madness. And this is the as far as I know, by far the most detailed record of how that happened, why it happened, the mistakes that were made. I think as we look at Zoran Mamdani coming in, and the question is, of course, is he going to make the same kinds of mistakes? Now, look, Lindsay was in many ways the victim of circumstances wildly beyond his control. The cities were going nuts in the 1960s for reasons that didn't necessarily have a lot to do with John Lindsay's policies. At the same time, he mismanaged a bunch of crises. He presided over a massive deterioration in New York and also set the city up for what would be the famous fiscal crisis chronicled in the Netflix documentary, which is also very good. Watch that this year. Drop Dead City. And as a side note, my father started working for the city of New York under John Lindsay. So as a budget analyst at the Health and Hospitals Corporation, and would eventually become assistant to the mayor, to Abe Beam, and then to Ed Koch. He became Ed Koch's Department of Environmental Protection Commissioner. So there's like a little personal lore in there, and it's really funny because like reading these things through, there were a couple spots where I'm like, I wonder if my dad was like in that room. But alas, he died last year, so I can't ask. But anyway, it's a great book, and high recommend to folks who are interested in New
Vin
York
will be very
Arcana.
excited about this conversation. So we don't need to dwell on this too much, but Lindsay was a liberal Republican, and there's a vast mafia of, now they're all aging out, but like, no offense, like your dad, right? It's just because given the time frame, but vast mafia of Lindsay loyalists who went on to do
My dad,
impressive
by the way,
things.
not a Lindsay loyalist.
Fair, okay.
Was very, very critical of John Lindsay.
So when Vin's book came out, which was, the adaptation of his PhD thesis, and people have heard me tell this story on The Remnant and on Glop a few times, he would do these book panel things and book event things at like the Barnes and Noble on 83rd and Broadway or 82nd Broadway, and at other places in New York City, and the Lindsay Mafia would show up and just give him hell, you know, and he had answers for all of it, but like the one the one that always sticks out, which is also the most germane here, is they would always say Lindsay brought Hollywood back to New York, which and Vin would be like, that's true. Like, people forget, like, there was like a 10-15 year period where they really didn't make a lot of movies in New York, and Lindsay did one of the first tax credit things to bring Hollywood back. And so Vin says, yes, that's true. Now let's look at the movies that came out from that program. Dog Day Afternoon, Taxi Driver, The French Connection, Death Wish, Serpico, Panic in Needle Park, right? All of these dystopian movies that depict, which are fun for me to watch because it's the New York of my childhood, but like are so grim and gritty and dark and all about how the city is overcome with crime and prostitution and muck. And it's like, okay, good for you. You brought in film crews to document, the destruction you visited on your city. Anyway, the only other thing is you can't talk about classic books about urbanism without mentioning Ed Banfield's The Unheavenly City. So
obviously. Sorry.
They'll come
omission.
For me.
Omission.
So mine is very different. There are a lot of things I rewatched or watched this year, and we could do a whole episode on just shows from the year. I'm currently rewatching for the first time in years The Man in the High Castle, which it's reinforcing my view about what an unbelievable missed opportunity it was to make it better, but it was good. And part of the problem, as me and John Podhoretz talk about this a lot, the real problem is that the book was kind of crappy. And it kudos to Philip K. Dick for basically creating contrafactual history, and there's a lot of fun stuff there, but the core of it with all this nonsense about the I Ching is just, it just doesn't work. Anyway, but anyway, the TV series I want to congratulate, particularly because it came out in 2025 and it is so contrary to the rest of the franchise these days, was Andor. Andor
so
was
good.
a 2-season Star Wars sort of prequel kind of series. It was dark. It was morally really serious. It was kind of tragic, given that we don't have to get into all the weeds about it, but like it basically takes a fairly minor character from one of the sequel movies, who dies in the movie and then gives his backstory. And it is deeply complex and both illuminates the attraction of the evil of the Empire, and also it's much more realistic evilness, and in ways that, like, what's the most remarkable thing about it is that it doesn't really need to be science fiction. It could very easily be about, I don't know, 1941 Western Europe after the top falling of France or Prague or something like that. And it's clever, and it's really compelling, and it expects the audience to be adults, while the rest of the we just had a very good piece at the Dispatch by Oliver Jia, is that how you pronounce his name? About how Disney has frittered away the Star Wars franchise, and this is the great counter example. Well, you have to say, but what about Andor? Because it was so unbelievably well done. They told the story they wanted to tell, which is very rare, and then said, that's it, it's over. And it came out in 2025, and it's great.
Yep.
Mike.
Well, I selected 2 because I had a feeling somebody would pick one or the other. So I just want to associate myself with the remarks of Mr. Goldberg on Andor. It's terrific, and it's a reminder also that Star Wars isn't really science fiction, right? It's space opera, it's fantasy. It's really fantasy, and it's a reminder you can set other stories in this universe that don't have to be the Skywalker saga about this stupid family that makes bad decisions. So, but my other alternative was the show Severance, which came back for its second season on Apple TV Plus in 2025. I love the idea of this show. For anybody who's unfamiliar with the show Severance, it is created and sort of run by Ben Stiller, although he's not in front of the camera. He's only behind the camera in the show. The idea is that there is a company where a number of its employees live their lives outside the company, and then when they go to work in the morning, they walk onto an elevator. The elevator goes down into the basement where their offices are, and by some bit of TV magic, their brain is rejiggered and a separate consciousness emerges once they reach the bottom floor. They are sort of severed from what in the show's terminology is called their outies, who live outside, and they have no knowledge or memory of what that is going on the outside. They are simply there to work for their 8 hours a day. And these innies, once they go back up the elevator, forget everything that they've done at work and go about their lives. So as an outie, you essentially walk into an elevator. It's like falling asleep. The next thing you know, you wake up and you are walking off that same elevator at the end of the day. It really takes this idea, which was from the first season explored, about what that would be like. It sounds like it might be a good idea. And in fact, in the narrative of the TV show, that is why a lot of people seem to take them up. Their lives on the outside are not that great. So let me go and forget about it while I'm working, earn a bunch of money, and then go back out. The second season really sort of continues the high quality of the first season in sort of exploring how the outies and the innies know and learn more about each other and about this kind of shady company. I love all of the sort of the mythology, I suppose, of the show. It's sort of built around a one of those kind of intentional communities that cropped up in the late 19th century in America, like the Oneida community and these things. It's sort of quasi-religious. There's a kind of work ethic tied to it that gets into very cult, areas.
It's like you're describing the Heritage Foundation in 2025. It's really amazing.
That's why it spoke to me so much, Jonah. So it's a terrific show. If you haven't seen it, it's great performances and terrific writing. And I can't wait to see where season 3 takes us.
I just feel so out of this conversation. I haven't watched Andor.
This whole show is your idea. I mean, all of these topics were your idea.
I mean, it's great. I just don't. I will watch a few of them. I'll definitely go back. I'm intrigued by Perry Mason. There's no chance I'm going to watch Andor. I think I stopped Star Wars at The Empire Strikes Back, and Severance I've tried like 3 times. It just doesn't click for me, and I know that makes me an outlier. Other people love it.
Steve was like, this makes sense. Why don't we do it at the Dispatch? Why don't we sever our employees?
I've watched 2 seasons of it, and I'm in between you two, where like it was fine. I was like happy enough to watch it, but my husband really liked it. But I didn't respond to it. I think it is one of those things where either you really click with it or you don't.
I agree. It has, to me, it feels like there's a Lost problem brimming.
Yes.
Like they don't know how to end it, and so like if Lost had managed to stick the landing, I would have thought that was one of the best TV shows ever made. Instead, I think Lost was like, haha, you suckers, we got you to watch this thing for 4 years and we had no idea what we were doing.
And that's actually like the problem there, right? Was that you can make a much better show in the instant if you don't have a plan to pay any of it off.
Right.
Right. You can do all sorts of cool stuff.
Although
you don't have to figure out how all this works together.
The counter examples to that is are Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, which if you believe Vince Gilligan, were planned out from the beginning and are 2 of the greatest shows of all time.
Better Call Saul was spectacular.
By the way, if people have not watched the new Vince Gilligan show Pluribus, let me again put a plug in for that because it really is quite good and weird and
it's
delightful.
Weird. It's weird, yeah.
And it is also science fiction.
Sort of, but it's not really about the science fiction element. It's basically the premise is that there is we get a transmission from another planet. We figure out that it is a recipe for a virus or for a DNA segment. We engineer it. It escapes the lab. This all happens in the first 4 minutes, by the way, of the show. I'm giving nothing away. And then it basically turns you into it allows the hive mind, humanity to become a hive mind. And then there are 11 people in the world it doesn't affect. Also, a bunch of people die. But so it's about one of those people who is a very unlikable romance writer, science fiction romance, actually. just to punch you in the face.
Keep going.
Steve.
Keep going.
No, but it's actually what it's really about is how one wrestles with being alone, with dealing with people who turn out to be they'll do anything for you. They'll just you want a nuclear bomb? Well, let's talk. Do you want a nuclear bomb? But do you really want a nuclear bomb? But they'll at one point, again, I don't think this is a big spoiler, they've taken the food out of the supermarket and she says, put it back. And they just all march in with all of the food. And they're running a supermarket basically for her. And so but also she wants to get people back. She's lost her partner, was one of the people who died. And so it's a really, really interesting show because you have seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You have seen a bunch of these post-apocalyptic movies. Vince Gilligan has seen them too and has decided to do something completely different. And it's extremely entertaining.
I like it for those reasons more than I like it for sort of meta reasons in that and this annoys my wife a great deal. I am very good at predicting what happens in TV shows and movies, and it drives her crazy. And so I will often email her while we're watching a show. Here's my prediction, so that she can look at it later without me. Don't so it doesn't spoil things. And
you do that just because you want to be right.
I want to say I called it. Right, and she won't believe me if I say I knew that was going to happen. And there are only really two shows that I'm largely they're sort of lead lined for me with that kind of thing. I mean, I'm sure there are others, right? I mean, there are surprises in Better Call Saul I didn't see coming and that kind of thing. But The Bear, which is a fantastic show, particularly the first season, and Pluribus. Pluribus kept going ways that I was like, oh, this is a thing about AI. Oh, this is, and I was no, it's kind of different. And so that I find, it's sort of like the Golden Path and Dune, just its ability to surprise me. I really find compelling, but I have problems with it too, but we can discuss those another time.
Well, I will do the same thing on this topic that I did last topic, which is be very brief because I plainly watch as many of these things as you all do. I don't watch movies and I don't bring sort of the level of sophistication and understanding that you all do. But a movie that I've greatly enjoyed was not from 2025. Apparently was from 2022. I looked this up when I decided to share it. And it's a film called Living, starring Bill Nighy. And I may have mentioned this once before here, but without giving too much away, the main character is a grumpy bureaucrat in London in the 1950s who either doesn't do his job, doesn't do it well, and is angry and is sort of indifferent to the repercussions of his not doing his job until he has been given a terminal cancer diagnosis. And then, as one imagines, starts paying more attention to the consequences of his actions and the people he meets and people he's neglected for much of his life. And the rest of the movie sort of follows him as he has a series of epiphanies and begins to change his behavior. And I thought Bill Nighy was spectacular in the film, but the movie itself and the themes it explores, it did so, at least to a tired guy watching it on I think it was a Southwest flight across the country, seemed to be in a more sort of textured and sophisticated way than one is accustomed to. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Next category, and we should try to be shorter on these, so we can get through more in the remaining 4 minutes that we have. We won't do it in 4 minutes. Next category is the best meal you had in 2025. And I will start with you, Jonah.
I really struggled with this because, well, you'll see why. So probably the best ambitious home-cooked meal, I have two, is my wife and I, when we were driving back from the West Coast over Thanksgiving, we stayed in a nice hotel where they had, and I ordered cassoulet, and I love cassoulet, and I was like, we should try and make this at home. And it turned into a 3-day process where we confit our own duck. We did the whole thing the right way, and it was great. We had a lot left over, and so my wife had this epiphany to turn the leftovers into a terrine, and which you sort of slice like a loaf of bread and have with some salad and some balsamic vinegar, and it's fantastic. So that, in terms of chefly stuff, the best away game meal I had, that scene where Vince Vaughn tells his kid to do earmuffs so that the kid can't hear what the grown-ups are saying? Yeah. I kind of want Steve to go on earmuffs right now. Because this was my wife's suggestion. And at the beginning of 2025, in January, we were staying in Door County. And I love diner food. I love good breakfasts. My family don't eat breakfast. I like big, serious, hearty breakfast. And in Door County in January is a really stupid place to be because it's like windy and freezing cold. And even the dogs are like, what are we doing here? And, but there's this place, Al Johnson's, famous for having goats on the roof, that has this Swedish breakfast of Swedish pancakes and with all sorts of various homemade jams. And I had a massive Swedish pancake breakfast with a side of Swedish meatballs and gravy. And it was fantastic. It is exactly the kind of breakfast you want when it's 6 degrees outside and windy in northern Wisconsin. And for an away game meal, particularly because it was a breakfast, it's the one that stands out.
It's funny that you say that because I was talking about the food at Al Johnson's with my sister and my brother-in-law within the last 2 days. And our universal take, I won't dispute, I could see that. It sounds very good what you say. Al Johnson's it's sort of like, one of the main tourist attractions in
it's kitchen.
That part of Door County.
It's the Mama Leone's of Door County.
Yes. And, the goats on the roof thing is all the kids want to go there and they want to eat there. And we were saying that we had not had a great meal at Al Johnson's, but we have other relatives who are in the Jonah camp who think it's sort of the best place to go eat in Door County. Very interesting. I will have to give it another shot. I'm open to it.
I don't know about the dinners. I mean, like the dinners seem farther conventional, and like I'm not a huge Scando.
I've had the
food
meatballs
person.
there. The meatballs there are very good.
The meatballs are solid.
Yeah. Mike.
I do love a good Swedish meatball.
Yeah, top 3 meatball.
All right,
maybe top 2.
Yeah.
All right, so in terms of we eat most of our meals at home, so this was also very difficult for me. So The only thing I could come up with that I just remember, because it's so hard to remember, like even though I enjoyed so many meals, I actually had to go back through my camera roll to see was something so good that I had to take a picture of it. But actually, the thing that that I keep thinking about from this year is something called a Mississippi pot roast. It is essentially you take just a big cheap piece of chuck roast, you put it in the slow cooker, you add pepperoncini peppers. Straight from the jar or the can. You add some other. It's like the only thing where we use like pre-packaged spice mixes. It's like a gravy mix and ranch dressing mix essentially. You put it all in there with some broth and you cook it until it's falling apart. And it is versatile. It is spicy. You can. I think we had it with mashed potatoes and vegetables one night, and then the next night we put it on a sandwich, and it's just with like a little cheese, and it's just comforting and easy, and I love that. Meals out, I was split between two different coasts. I had a dinner in San Francisco this year at a place called Burma Superstar, which is a Burmese restaurant in Richmond, in that district of San Francisco. I went there with a friend, a very good friend of mine who lives in San Francisco, recommended it. If you've never had Burmese, which I had not, it's essentially a slightly spicier Thai cuisine, and it was excellent. And I really enjoyed that meal, not just for the food, but also the experience of trying a new cuisine. On the other side of the coast, I was in New York a few times this year, but one trip that I went, I had dinner with another old friend, very good friend, at just a diner, Jonah, Montague Diner on Montague Street, and it is sort of a classier level up than like a Greasy Spoon kind of diner, and it was sort of a late night dinner. Got a cheeseburger, and it was delicious. And once again, the company was what was as enjoyable as the food.
Megan?
Yeah.
This can be something you prepared as I should have specified.
So,
yes.
For restaurant meals, honestly, I traveled so much. I ate a lot of restaurant meals, but none of them were super memorable, except for there is a wonderful cocktail bar in Woburn, Massachusetts, in a Sichuan restaurant. I seriously, if you are in the greater Woburn area, it's near Boston. It is worth driving to this place. It's on the north. I can't explain it. The cocktails are amazing. The food is great. And it's in Woburn. It's delightful. You can usually not like super hard to get a table there. And the food's really good. And also we went for lobster with my aunt at Woodman's of Essex when we were up there. And this is also it's like an hour drive from the little town we were staying in. But boy, those folks know how to steam a lobster. And, my husband got a big platter of fried things, and there were beer. You could take it out now. This didn't used to be true when I was a kid, but they now have tents in the back. You can take it out. There was a little beer truck. It was terrific. I really enjoyed that. But my favorite meal of the year is, so every Christmas we have the same menu, which is we have prime rib, and we have some squash, a little asparagus, Yorkshire puddings, gravy. This year we added an old-fashioned dessert that I think is due for a revival. It's delicious. Even my husband, who does not like fruit-based desserts, now is a convert on this. It's called snow pudding. It is a gelatin-stabilized egg white foam with lemon juice and zest. It looks like its namesake. It has the same delicious kind of bite when you get the lemon against this cloudy softness. Served it with raspberry sauce and a little. It's traditionally served with custard. I also added raspberry sauce because I think lemon and raspberry are always amazing together.
Yes.
But this is not actually my favorite meal of the year. My favorite meal of the year is that after Christmas dinner, the next day, in the next couple days, I take a bag of frozen cube potatoes and I chop up the remains of the prime rib and I make roast beef hash, which is like my favorite food.
Oh.
You top it with a little gravy and a fried egg, and then you have snow pudding for dessert after that. That, folks, that is some fine eating. So that was my favorite meal of the year. It was last night.
Can we have that for the second time?
Absolutely.
You can invite us over after we have the short ribs. What do you call them? The perpetual short ribs with perpetual gravy? No.
Yeah, the infinity brace.
Infinity. Yes. Okay. Good. Okay. Well, we have to get those 2 dates now on the books since we've invited ourselves over.
No, I'm serious. Let's get these on the books.
We can do an entire podcast reviewing the meal. My best meal. Everybody gave 2 or 3, which is good. I wasn't sure that this would work as a topic, and I think it has because we can't narrow it down. I'll briefly, the one thing I did at home that I hadn't done before, and I don't cook this way hardly ever, but it turned out great, was a green hatch chili pork butt that we made into carnitas.
Nice.
In the crock pot, which I just don't, I am a grill and a smoker guy. I don't do crock pots, and it was spectacular. And it was a ton of food for like $25. It was crazy. And didn't have to add much to it. I usually like to really season things up. I did a little, but it was pretty great as it was. But the best meal I had of the year was at my favorite restaurant in the entire world, which is a place in central Madrid called Angelita. And it was when my family lived in Madrid in 2018, 2019, sort of our neighborhood wine bar, but had great food back then and has grown into just an outstanding restaurant. Really my favorite restaurant in the world. It's been written up in the New York Times as a great place to go get wine, which was unfortunate because now there are long waits. It's hard to get a table there. I went there in November. I took a 10-day trip to Spain with a group of friends, went there in November, and I've gotten to know the owner, is a great gregarious host named David, who also oversees the kitchen, terrific cook. And we basically, when we go there now, we just say, sort of make us dinner, bring us dinner. And he prepares the courses. He chooses what we're having. We don't order from the menu. He does the wine pairings. And he did this for our group. And the reason it was great, I won't go through each of the 6 courses, although I'm tempted to do so, is that he presents stuff that there's no chance I would ever order it if I were ordering it on my own. And the first of the courses they were sort of blanched red peppers that were doused in olive oil and then some other creamier sauce. They were soggy is the only way I can describe them. And then they had little chunks of sardines in them. Again, I never order sardines. I'm not a big fan of sardines. I would never order this dish. And the same was true with the other 5 gentlemen I was with. And it was spectacular, like on another level. The combination of the flavors was unbelievable and obviously memorable because I can describe it today. The very best thing at that meal, which was I think our 3rd or 4th course, was his steak tartare, which was incredible on a crispy piece of toast. It was almost creamy in substance. And it had on either side of it, sort of 3 sections. On the left side was a homemade Tabasco. On top of it, on the right side was a homemade sriracha. And in the middle was just the steak tartare plain. So you took 3 separate bites and had 3 totally different taste experiences. And it was, it's one of the best things I've ever put in my mouth anywhere, ever, under any circumstances. And everybody at our table agreed with it. It was incredible. And then we followed that up with grouper 3 ways, which included grouper cheeks. And then the final course was a suckling pig, which was done the way that the Spanish do suckling pigs. So absolutely
You say that
phenomenal.
like everyone knows.
Yeah,
as you know, in the Spanish fashion, as we all know.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. You're right. So the Spanish do suckling pigs very, very well, particularly in and around Madrid and Segovia, which is famous for its suckling pigs. The oldest restaurant in the world is a restaurant called Botín, which is, it's a bit of a touristy place now. They've had a fire going. I think it's like since the United States was founded. The fire has been going continuously. and their specialty is suckling pig. And as they do, this is typical in Segovia and elsewhere, they don't ever use a knife or fork to cut the suckling pig. They use the edge of the plate to demonstrate to you how tender the
it
suckling
is.
pig is. Yeah. And that's what they did here. And so the outside was just extraordinarily crispy, almost like you were biting into a very flavorful piece of balsa wood. And then it was just an explosion of juices and flavor and everything when you got into it. It really was a remarkable meal. I've sent many people to this restaurant Angelita, and nobody has even written back and said, yeah, my meal was really good, thanks. Everybody writes back and says, this is one of the best meals I've ever had in my entire life. I can't wait to go back, that kind of a thing. So if you are wandering through, what was your town, Megan? Woburn? If you're wandering through Woburn, go to Megan's place. If you're wandering through Madrid, I recommend to stop at
And Al Johnson's if you're going through Door County.
And Al Johnson's if you're going through Door County. And Mike's Burmese place.
In Richmond, San Francisco.
We'll put them in the show notes.
We'll put them in the show notes.
I will say, when I hear about a fire that's been going for 3 centuries or something like that, all I can think about is the pressure on the intern who like screws up and lets it go out. Like, what? Like, you just not tell anybody?
This sort of intern, for example, might get
match.
fired from his first job out of college working
That's
at
right.
the restaurant in
Yes. It's a good place. That place, Restaurant Botín. It is very, it's touristy and typical. I don't get the sense that a lot of Madrileños eat there, but it is also very good. The food is actually very good. Okay, we've got 2 categories left. We're going to move through these more quickly than we have because we're running long. Talk about the ruthless elimination of hurry. We are not hurrying through, but now we're going to.
Anybody who's still
dispatch.
listening wants to hear it to the end.
Yes.
Fair.
So
That's true. Okay, so the next topic, I horned in entirely because I want to tell people about something. So you'll forgive.
You should go first then.
The
Steve.
self-indulgence.
Yeah, you go first.
Yeah,
here.
go first.
The topic was: is there a new product you encountered or acquired that you now can't live without? And by product, I mean take an expansive view of these things. It can be sort of anything and everything that you got in 2025 that you can't live without. So mine also came from this trip to Spain. The beginning part of the trip, I went and saw some good friends in southern Spain in a town called Estepona, which is near Marbella, between Marbella and Malaga. And we spent an afternoon in Marbella, which is a super ritzy, upscale, fancy town. Russian mafiosos there, lots of yachts in Spain, and we were walking through its old town, and we came upon an olive oil shop. And I love olive oil. I love all kinds of olive oil, but I particularly love Spanish olive oil. And this olive oil shop was huge. It had a wine tasting shop next to it, attached, same owner. And you could do tastings. And I'm sorry to report that we spent, I think, nearly 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half in this olive oil shop doing tastings. And we tasted every kind of olive oil imaginable, from the sort of everyday to the really spectacular sort of, price of gold kind of olive oils. But there was one kind that this place made itself, and I'm going to call up the name of the shop. Is De Oliva is the name of the place in Marbella. And they have their own sort of flavor infused olive oils. And there was one that is a smoked habanero olive oil that is one of the greatest flavors you can have of anything, anywhere, under any circumstances. And as we were in the shop and we were tasting it, the only thing I could think of was taking, a huge Delmonico or ribeye and just dousing it in this olive oil, rubbing it all over with the olive oil, and then sprinkling, huge chunky salt, flashing it on the grill for a very rare steak, which I still have yet to do. I only bought one of these because we went to this olive oil shop immediately after landing. And so my basic philosophy is don't overbuy in your first stop. So I only bought one container of this olive oil, and I have spent the better part of the past 2 months writing to
Regretting.
the owner of the shop asking if he could please import this or export this to the United States. He sends it to Asia, he sends it to the Middle East, he sends it throughout Europe, but they do not send it to the United States yet. Anyway, the thing that I've done with it that is now my sort of go-to at home is avocado toast with this olive oil drizzled on the top. Sourdough bread, crunchy, avocados, the chunky salt. I use a chunky lemon salt, and then the smoked habanero olive oil. And again, you can tell from the reaction. I serve it to my son and his buddies who are not big, let's say, avocado oil guys. They're not avocado oil bros or avocado toast bros. And, they don't just react to it by like, oh, that's good. They react to it with the sort of, oh, dude, hitting each other's shoulders, that kind of reaction, which I take to
That's
be
high praise.
the ultimate sign that it hit. So that's it. Diolova smoked habanero olive oil. If anybody's going through Marbella and then coming through DC, let me know. I'll meet you at Dulles Airport and we can do some kind of a handoff because it's really, really great. Jonah, you want to go next?
Sure. I don't have anything as grandiose. I tried to form attachments to people and not things.
I was like, it is totally.
stole
By the
my
way,
joke,
it is
Jonah. I was
totally.
gonna say.
It is totally revealing that I'm like, the book thing. Here's my 10 seconds. The movie thing. Here's my 10 seconds. But the food.
Yeah. So first of all, I have to say, because some of us care about the business, that Aura frames really are a game changer. And
Can I tell you a story about that?
sure.
So I, of course, am an avid listener to various podcasts at the Dispatch long before I joined. And some spiel Sarah did on advisory opinions with no shade on other people who may have
No,
sung the praises.
she
But
moves
I
those
was
things.
desperately, when a couple years ago, I was desperately trying to find a gift for my dad, and I could not. He was he just moved to a nursing home. He was like, and we were going to do Christmas there. I made a little prime rib. I didn't make prime rib. I actually made filet that year because like taking a prime rib to a nursing home was more that I could do. But I did the whole thing. I put it in foil. I jumped in the car. We drove 45 minutes to the nursing home from his house. But I couldn't think what to get him. And finally, Sarah's doing this thing. I was like, screw it. If he hates it, like, what have I lost? I can't think. He loved that frame.
That's good. Yeah.
Every time he called, he talked about that frame. And because it turned out to be the last year of his life, that was every day he would call and tell me about the pictures. We loaded all the pictures we could find on it. And it was really special. So anyway, sorry. Sorry,
That's
Jonah.
great.
No, my
I-
parents talk about it the same way.
Yeah.
And this is true. We gave our two kids in college Aura frames for Christmas. One of them is going to be overseas. One of them is going to be away at college here in the U.S. And we gave them Aura frames for Christmas. And I can tell you that the way that they responded, it wasn't the, slap each other on the shoulders like, oh, but you could tell that they were genuinely excited to get them. So this is
So I should
a
also
plug
say
without
my
sponsorship.
we got my daughter a subscription to ExpressVPN, and it really was. But we don't need to get into all that. No, so like people who attend the editorial meetings will notice that I'm often outside if I'm not in my car for the editorial meeting when we're on Zoom and stuff, and I'm in my backyard, and I have become I like fire pits, outside fire pits, but the problem with the low ones is they throw off so much ash and you get bathed in smoke and you smell, that kind of stuff. And my wife I had to look up the name of it because it's not a fire pit. The company that makes it is called Terrain, as in the ground, right? And the actual product is called an angled obelisk chimenea. and it is basically it looks like an outdoor stove kind of thing, where it's like it's sort of like a teepee on a pedestal, and then it goes out to be a pipe, and it pushes all the smoke someplace else. And we'll put it in the show notes. It throws off an amazing amount of heat. So there have been some accidents where chairs have been damaged because I left them too close to the thing. And I would be, for people with backyards and little kids, I would just be a little cautious, because if they want to go up and touch it, they will burn themselves. But it is, I can be outside in 30-degree weather if I'm close to that thing, and it's great. And I like burning things, But the other product I thought about talking about was, I have a culinary blowtorch that I love. I like fire. I guess that's the problem. So like when there's an arson investigation, this podcast is going to be problematic for me. But anyway, that's my product, and I use it constantly.
Mike?
This is not a new discovery, or I should say, it is not a new product, but it is a new discovery for me, an acquired sort of product for me, a OXO brand steel double jigger, which I use in cocktail making. And the reason I love this little thing is it's got 2 cups, and a sort of a rubber connector in between, so it's easy to use and handle in your fingers to pour in different levels, and the different ounce gradations for each level: quarter ounce, half ounce, full ounce on one side, third ounce, 3/4 ounce, 1.5 ounce on the other side, are etched into the steel. It will never rub off, and you won't be able to read those graduations. And so it's terrific. It's easy to use. I use it, I shouldn't say I use it all the time, but
every morning.
I kind of do.
I brush my teeth and I get it out.
Exactly. But I love it. And of all the new gear that I've gotten in my home bar, it's the one I love the most.
Nice. Megan?
This is a new product, and so I can't really say I can't live without it, because until like 4 days ago I did. But I was wandering through a charming little neighborhood in DC called Dakota Crossing, and I stumbled across this little shop called Costco, and I went in.
I was like, Dakota Crossing, I think I know what that is. It
it's the big
be a
shopping
charming
center where
where
the Costco and the Lowe's are. Sorry, there's a little DC insider joke for those who are. So I was in Costco so once a year, Costco does bone-in prime grade prime rib. They only do it around the Christmas season. They might still have a few left if people want to get it. High recommend. Roast it low and slow, and then reverse sear at the end, just like a couple minutes under the broiler to get the crust.
Or with a blowtorch.
Yeah, that's true. Or with a blowtorch. You can roast it at like 175 and just do that. It's amazing. But so as I was wandering around picking up all the stuff for Christmas dinner, I saw a robot vacuum mop. And I'd just been reading for no particular except because so Roomba, iRobot, the makers of the original robot vac, is now bankrupt and being bought out by its Chinese supplier.
Yeah.
And I had been vaguely interested in this, and somehow my rabbit hole ended at a Wirecutter article on robot vacuums, which testified that indeed Roomba is no longer the best robot vac. But so I'm reading about this, and then I see it, and I was looking at it, and I was like, should I? And then finally I was like, I guess I should. This is my Christmas gift to me. And so I texted my husband before I did this, because he often has very strong opinions about my decisions to bring home gadgets. But he gave me the tentative go ahead. It's a robot mop combination. And I in full disclosure, Wirecutter does not recommend the robot mop, but I have had a very good experience with it. They say just get a vacuum. We have 2 large dogs. Now I do mop. I have in fact, we don't have any closets on our first floor, so I just keep stuffed in a corner a mop and a little Dyson stick vac. But it's like I've suddenly realized how dirty our floors were most of the time because like you're just not mopping constantly. So I now just set this thing to go. The dogs initially, I have to say, were extremely skeptical, bordering on murderous towards this thing, but they've gotten used to it.
Well, they're known
And-
Luddites.
Indeed, dogs really are. The dogs are natural conservatives,
Yeah.
except about treats. Then they're natural socialists. But it actually is. It works really easily. It's just like empty out the dirty water once every couple days or every day if you're more anal retentive than I am. But it works surprisingly well. Our floors look so much better, and I'm like, wow, this is what our house looks like when it's clean all the time. It's fantastic. And I'm like, so poor Huckleberry, our younger dog who just turned 1. When I was coming home from a trip, he jumped off the bed in the middle of the night and seems to have like given himself like a hairline fracture in his arm. So the poor guy has been on bed rest, or I should say cage rest, in our living room for 3 weeks. He's shortly to be sprung from durance vile. But in the meantime, he has been shedding because he's so stressed by being in his crate all the time. And of course, we can't explain to him. He's like, why do you hate me? Why Sybil's running around? Like, what's wrong with me? And I'm like, no, we love you. We want your arm to get better. But of course, you can't have that conversation with your dog. But I mean, our dogs shed a lot anyway, even though bull mastiffs are not supposed to be particularly sheddy dogs. And this has really upped, like, because it's automatic, because I don't have to think about it. Because I can't be like, well, I don't have time to vacuum now, I'm going to do something else. I just start the app, it goes and does it. And it is high recommend. The company's name is Roborock. If you do not have our unique circumstances, the standalone vacuums are somewhat cheaper. And they apparently do a very good job according to the New York Times Wirecutter. But I've actually been super happy with this thing so far. Maybe it will break and then I will hate it. But luckily, Costco has a very good, very generous return policy. And I will take advantage of it if it breaks in the next year or so.
How can I ask how much it costs?
It was like $400, which for a robot vac is not that. I think it was $420. And this was like, we did like basically almost homemade Christmas presents this year, which we usually do. We don't gift each other big gifts. Like partly it's joint money. So like I'm not super into jewelry. Peter buys stuff that if he knows he needs something, he buys it. And so we generally do. So this year, for example, I got GPT to make line drawings of all our past and current dogs and write the names at the bottom. And then I put it all in a photo frame. And so that's like I printed out. Actually, I have to tell you, it took me like hours because it wasn't printing it out. It was cutting everything correctly to fit the frame. I am not a crafty person. And Peter buys me, as he has done in many previous years, he scours the web and finds me old cookbooks for like promotional stuff for Hot Point or whatever. I love all this stuff. Can't get enough of it. But so I figure in the Christmas budget, we probably spent less than many couples do on each other. But honestly, like it's a lot. This is not a cheap purchase, but
Yeah.
it's not actually that much more than a good vacuum. And it is the fact that it will go around and clean my house itself without my having to do anything about it is really been game changing just in the last week. So.
Noted. I'm taking notes for future purchases. Maybe I'll wait till they go on sale. And then finally,
At Costco, they're always at a good price. They don't do
that's
sales.
true. That's true. And if you have a Costco card, you can get executive membership. You get some.
Yeah, I have an
cash
executive
back.
membership, so I'm getting cash back on that baby. Yeah.
Right.
Costco
free.
really should sponsor this podcast.
Costco's pretty great.
Not to mention Roborock. No, I mean, I will say I have been skeptical of these things. We tried one years ago and didn't get a lot of use out of it, but this is different. It's much better. It's been doing a great job, and we're very happy with it.
Love it. Final topic is resolutions. And I floated this to you all with some trepidation because I think I don't know if you're resolutions people or not resolutions people. So I ask about resolutions. If you're not a resolutions person, just tell us that and tell us why. If you are a resolutions person, was there a 2025 resolution that worked well for you? And do you have any in 2026 that you would be willing to share? And Megan, I'll come back and start with you.
I am generally not a resolutions person because I often start like New Year's resolution type activities during Lent. So I figure if there's something bad for me, give it up during Lent and then like go forward that way. But this year I actually have a bit of a resolution, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot and something that really kind of was driven home to me watching the argument over the Kennedy Center. Trump is putting his name on the Kennedy Center. This is, I think, I'm not a lawyer, but it seems to be quite illegal. Also, it's gross. You are not a dictator. We do not name like everything in the country after you.
Wait till his coin comes out. His coin's coming too, and that's totally illegal too. Anyway,
so artists are responding by boycotting the Kennedy Center. And the problem with this is that, as we discovered during the pandemic, which really hurt a lot of small theaters in ways they've never recovered from, is that you can't always put the genie back in the bottle, right? Like if you harm the Kennedy Center for the next 3 years, the damage just may be permanent. And now, and I said this on Twitter, and people were like, "Well, isn't that Trump's fault?" And I was like, So, a thing that people do, and I think has been really pronounced in the last decade, is everyone treating the interesting question for most people is whose fault is this and who is a bad person, rather than like, what are the consequences of my personal actions? That is not an interesting question at all. Why should I think about any impact? Because the real question is who has responsibility for it. Like, well, but you can control your actions. So at that level, you can control whether you do things that will damage the Kennedy Center, right? And so the thing I want to do in the next year is just think more about the impact of my actions rather than like who is right and wrong, which is not to say I'm not thinking about right and wrong. We should all think about right and wrong. We should call out things that are wrong. We should think about things that are right. But like that doesn't absolve, having identified who is at greater fault does not absolve you from the need to think about, is the thing I am doing creating an action, a result in the world that I wish to happen, or is it not? And I think that the people, the artists pulling out of the Kennedy Center, and maybe their answer is, yes, this is what I want. I think should think long and hard about, like, Trump's going to be here for another 3 years, but then he will be gone. Whatever damage you do to the Kennedy Center may be with us for a long time. Do you want that damage to happen? Or, like, do you prefer that to allowing a performance to go out with the name Trump over it, which is illegal and terrible? But, like, because the thing that you actually want is to like signal this is so disgusting that Trump will stop. But Trump's not going to stop, right? This is not going to have any impact on Trump. The impact is going to be on the Kennedy Center and on the people who watch theater. Do you wish to have that impact? If you do, follow your bliss. But you should at least think about that rather than just thinking like, I am sending a strong and important message. You know what? Like, we are now so polarized, the messages don't matter. Everyone you're sending that message to already hates Trump. Everyone who you're trying to send that message to doesn't care. So think about what your actual, but I mean this not just in politics. I just mean this generally. Like, I'm thinking about this with my podcast, which is why I called it Reasonably Optimistic, is I think we spend too much time talking about how terrible everything is, not on this podcast, but on many podcasts. I'm just trying to think about in my life, like, what sorts of things do I wish to see reflected in the world?
Yeah.
One could almost say, be the change you wish to see. But I really think that's actually...
You should get that printed on a shirt or something.
Yeah,
Merch.
yeah, that's good, huh?
Merch.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just trying to... now that I'm in my 50s, hopefully I've acquired a little wisdom, I am thinking more about, like, what would I like to see in the world, not what am I angry about in the world. And I think so. That's my resolution going forward.
I like it. Jonah, you're old. You're the oldest person on the podcast. Presumably have the most wisdom. Are you doing resolutions this year?
No. I don't really do resolutions. I like to set reasonable goals for myself. So I resolve not to have a resolution this year. That said, I'm falling apart, dude. So I gotta I don't call it a resolution, but I gotta I have a carpal tunnel thing with my arm that is affecting my livelihood in bad ways because it makes typing painful. So I resolved to get that taken care of. But I'm doing it. You know, I gotta say, when I saw the topics come in, I just rechecked it. I misread it. I was like, because I saw that there was resolutions, but I also thought there was a thing about do you celebrate New Year's Eve? And I just want to be really clear. I hate New Year's Eve. I think it's the friggin' dumbest. It is a 20-something thing. It is almost as stupid as Valentine's Day, but in some ways worse. People put all this pressure on themselves to stay up to see a friggin' ball drop and watch really terrible television. So to me, it is just the passage of a day on the calendar, and a way to forget what year it is when you're writing a check or something.
I'm entirely with you on New Year's Eve. Mike, do you do resolutions, or if there are topics that you'd like to introduce that were not in the email that I sent about topics?
Yeah, let's talk about 19th century Russian history. No, so I am the
Decemberists get a bad rap. I gotta say.
They really do. Great progressive rock band, though. I am a lifelong practicing Catholic with the emphasis on the practicing part. And one of the many merits to my faith is that the concept of, as Megan suggested, the concept of a New Year's resolution it's I wouldn't say it's meaningless, but it's a little superfluous because not only does the liturgical calendar, whether it's Lent or really Advent now as well, or even Christmas, gives us all these opportunities to sort of make resolutions to improve ourselves and be better Christians than what we have been. Really, every time you go to confession, which is a sacrament, provides that opportunity as well. So I will not be making a New Year's resolution. I will simply be continuing to make and failing to achieve the resolutions that I am making throughout the year, to live healthier, to be more studious when it comes to my job, to be a better husband, a better father. So it's an ongoing process, Steve, and that's the way I guess it's supposed to be.
Those are all worthwhile goals, even if they're perma goals.
Exactly.
My resolution is to be nicer to Jonah in 2026. Treat him with the respect that he deserves. Be more indulgent.
Get the meanness in now.
Nicer is such a low bar. If you'd said you resolved to be nice to me, that would be one thing. But nicer,
only one of us has in his bio that he likes to blame the other for stuff, and then try to deny it. So I'm not a hardcore resolutions guy. I've done a few of them. We had to do them back when on Special Report when we would do the New Year's Eve show. Brett Baer always asked us to come with a resolution. I started doing them then. I think I've told this story here before, but the funniest one ever was when Chris Wallace was sitting in for Brett that night and had Charles Krauthammer on the show, and we all had to go around and give our New Year's resolutions, and Charles was famous for going last and being able to use up whatever precise amount of time there was left. So if there was a minute 14 seconds that Charles had, he would hit a minute 14 seconds. It was pretty remarkable. But on this night, Chris asked him with a lot of time left what his New Year's resolution was, and Charles just said, to be concise. And that was it. Didn't say anything more, and there was just dead air, and then we all fell over each other laughing. So I had a good resolution in 2025. It was a simple one, and it was to be early. I would say I didn't hit it 100% of the time, but I was pretty close, 95-ish% of the time, and it was really great. Mental lift. In 2026, I'm recycling a resolution that I had 5 or 6 years ago that we talked about on Special Report, which is to say no more often. I get myself in a situation where I say yes to way too many things, at work, at home, elsewhere. And then I'm overextended and frustrating and racing around and don't do anything well. So I'm heading into 2026 with a resolve to say no more often. So if you ask me for something, any of you listening, ask me for something and I tell you no, don't take offense. Just know that this is part of me and my new goal for 2026.
I have actually made the same not New Year's resolution because what I realized was like I've maxed out my capacity, and I don't want to do any of the things I do badly, and
Yes.
so I just have to start saying no. I cannot do that. I just turned down a writing opportunity that I really wanted to do, but it was just like nope. I am now I'm out of extra things. That's it. We have done all of the things.
That's exactly where I am. And the thing that was when I did this for a year. I mean, I did it for longer than a year, but I really focused on it for a year. And the thing that I realized was that it would require saying no to things I actually wanted to do. The reason I did it was to sort of free me up to say no to things I didn't want to do, but did out of obligation. And, I found that was a huge part of my schedule, was just doing stuff I felt like I had to do. But what it made me do was say no to things that I wanted to do. But the upside of doing that was tremendous, because you could actually think and do the things that you did better than you otherwise would have. Speaking of doing things better than we otherwise would have, we will aim to do better in 2026 with this podcast. We're glad to have had you along in 2025. And we will be back to our twice weekly schedule on the other side of the New Year. So Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, everyone.
It's another day.